Hey everybody, this is Don Newman and this is Living a Life Worth Remembering. This is the show that is all about teaching us how we can live a life that would continue to live on even after our own lifetime is ended. You know, I've been doing this show now for well over 2 years, and I've done episodes just like today, and I've interviewed all kinds of different people. And the whole point of this show is to try to bring something out that'll help you, that'll help me be able to live life in such a way that we leave a lasting legacy, that it's remembered, that it goes on and it has impact. And some of the people that I've talked to in the last episodes, they were sharing things that they were doing in their life that were making a difference not only in their current life, but would help them live a life that would continue to live on and create a legacy. And so one of the people that I really wanted to interview was on my list to do an interview with. Unfortunately, I did not get the chance to interview this individual, was Coach Bobby Bowden. And many of you, if you follow sports or you're familiar with Coach Bowden, you know Coach Bowden just passed away just recently at the age of 91. But one of the reasons I wanted to interview Coach Bowden is because of two things. Number one, nobody had a greater impact on my life than Coach Bowden did. And the thing that's important for me to share about that is Coach Bowden wasn't my coach. I never played football for him. I never coached underneath him. But his life had an impact on me even though I didn't play for him, even though I didn't coach underneath him. I grew up in Tallahassee, and I was familiar with Coach Bowden because he was the head coach of the Florida State Seminoles, and everybody in Tallahassee knew who Coach Bowden was. But he had an impact on my life because I chose him as a mentor, and that's something I want to encourage all of you to do. You know, we think that mentors choose us, but it's the other way around. We choose our mentors. We choose the people we want to learn from. We choose the people we want to emulate. We choose the people that we want to be like. And I very much wanted to be like Coach Bowden. I respected him so much, and the influence that he had on my life has ripple effects that go beyond even my own lifetime to my children and even to my grandchildren. The second reason I wanted to interview Coach Bowden is because no one really lived up to living a life worth remembering, the theme of this show, like Coach Bowden did. His life was a life well lived, and it absolutely was a life worth remembering. If you did get a chance to see the service or any of the news clips that were around the service with many of his former players and coaches were sharing what Coach Bowden meant to them, you would have heard many stories of the influence and impact that Coach Bowden had on all of those players, of all of those coaches, and even administrators. But I want to share 8 things that I learned from Coach Bowden that impacted my life that I think they're important to look at, because if you're wanting to follow somebody that is going to make an impact in your life, you want to follow people that are going to pour into your life and are going to make your life better. And that's what Coach Bowden did for so many people, and he did that in my life as well. And so the first thing about Coach Bowden that really stood out to me that had an impact in my life was that to Coach Bowden, every person was important. Every single person was important. I got the chance to meet him on several occasions at FCA or prayer breakfast, and also when I was coaching football, I got the chance to meet him at a coaching clinic. And he actually recruited my older brother, and so I know my brother got to meet him. So several of my family members had gotten the opportunity to meet him over the years. But Coach Bowden, it didn't matter if you were a 5-star football player, the most recruited player in the nation, or if you were a trainer that was working around the football team. He treated everybody as though they were the most important people, and he was interested in people. I don't know of anybody that had the ability to remember names like he did. And that doesn't come from my own experience. That comes from hearing people tell stories. One of my favorite stories is of a football player that actually lived in the neighborhood that Coach Bowden lived in, but hadn't seen Coach Bowden in a decade or so. And at 5:30 in the morning, he's leaving to take his son to a baseball tournament, and he sees Coach Bowden out at his mailbox. And he hasn't talked about Coach Bowden in over 10 years. And at 5:30 in the morning, in the dark, he cracks his window down because he was going to say, "Hey, Coach Bowden, you remember me?" And Coach Bowden looks over at him as his window's coming down, and he says to him, "Is that you, Herb?" I mean, to be able to remember people's names that you haven't seen in 10 years and in the dark, and the change that probably had gone on since he had seen this young man, that's somebody that really took an interest. And so what is the important lesson that comes away from making sure that you treat everybody as they're important? And I'll tell you what comes to mind is this: you cannot coach you can't coach hundreds or thousands of people if you can't coach one. You can't lead, hundreds or 50s unless you can lead one. And Coach Bowden had a way about him of focusing on one person at a time. He focused on this person. He focused on this individual. And he did it as individuals. And the pressures to succeed can cause us to overlook all of these small relationships as not being important. Almost like if you spend time with somebody, you're going to miss the big people that you need to be with if you want to get somewhere. That wasn't Coach Bowden. Coach Bowden, he saw each person as important. And when you heard all the testimonies, all of the stories, you found out that is what people remember most about Coach Bowden, is that he remembered them because they were important to him. The second thing is that Coach Bowden, he took responsibility for relationships. He didn't wait for relationships to happen to him. He took the responsibility to make relationships happen. And so you see Coach Bowden through the years reaching out, shaking somebody's hand, asking them their name, asking them about where they're from. And he was the one that was basically initiating the relationship. And too many times people wait for somebody else to initiate it. If they talk to me, I'll talk back to them. But that wasn't Coach Bowden. Coach Bowden chose to reach out to people. And you hear the stories of him stopping somewhere and going in and talking to somebody at a restaurant, asking their name, and reaching out to them. And, if they're going to be meaningful and life-changing relationships, someone has to initiate them. Somebody has to take the first step. And one of the things that made Coach Bowden unique and made him memorable is the fact that he didn't wait for things to happen. He didn't wait for somebody to introduce themselves. He was the one that was stepping out to make the relationship, to ask questions. And so as you think about your own life, don't overlook the relationships that you need to initiate, that you need to be the one to build, because that's a big part of living a life that's going to be remembered and remembered well. The third thing was, Coach Bowden was secure in himself. He was secure in himself, and he was secure being a person with Southern charm and humor. He was very secure being a Christian. And you could see that he was secure in himself and secure in being who he was. He was genuine. And, to have an impact in life, we've got to be secure in ourselves. Now, Coach Bowden found his security primarily through God, through a relationship with Jesus Christ. But it was in that security that Coach Bowden wasn't looking to take from people or what can they give me? I need something from them. Instead, he was a giver. Because of the security that was in himself, he could be himself and he could give. And so I encourage you, and I encourage myself at the same time, if we want to be the type of people that live a life that has impact, that has influence, that's remembered, we need to have security in ourselves. We need to be secure in who we are, and so that we can give. And the fourth thing is that while Coach Bowden loved to win ball games, this is one of my favorite things about Coach Bowden, he loved to help other people win even more than winning ball games. Now, he loved winning a ball game. He was very competitive. But I think he got more pleasure, and I know he did because of the statements he made, in somebody winning in life. A ball player could have been a part of a national championship team, and that was incredible. But you'd hear conversations of him talking later about somebody becoming successful as a business leader, as a parent, as a government official. Whatever role they went into in life, he celebrated their success. And listening to the conversations that he had with his players while they played for him, he took a lot of time to really pour into them about their life. And I love, this quote that basically talks about this. If you will make the success of others greater than your own success, you can never fail, and your wins will always outlast you. Coach Bowden made other people's success greater than his own success, and he put them first. The fifth thing I love about Coach Bowden and how he made such an impact and an influence is Coach Bowden was forgiving. He was always willing to give people a second chance. Now, he was criticized for this many times because a player would get in trouble with the law, or maybe they had trouble with their schoolwork. And while Coach Bowden absolutely would hold everybody accountable, he was forgiving, and he believed people deserved a second chance. And he saw that second chance as an opportunity that could mean all the difference in this person being successful and turning things around and getting their life together. And many times, I heard the testimonies of people that got that second chance and turned their life around, and they look back to the moment that Coach Bowden gave them that second chance. And what that says is this: if you want to go far in life and be remembered, you're going to have to forgive some people along the way and give some people a second chance. You can't just, cut people off because they failed once. And yes, we hold people accountable. Yes, we believe for the best. But many times you've got to give somebody a second chance. How many people look back and they remember that person that gave them that second chance, and that was the turning point? And that's what Coach Bowden did. Coach Bowden, the sixth thing Coach Bowden did is he lived what he preached. People will remember you more by what you did than anything you ever said. Let your life match your words. And Coach Bowden did that. Coach Bowden believed certain things, and what people saw off the field, and they saw in the locker room, and they saw in personal encounters with him, they didn't see anything different than what he said he believed. And it's important because integrity can go a long way, and it can go from generation to generation, but it's got to be seen. It's got to be lived. And so, sometimes we don't think it matters. We can say one thing and live another way, but it does matter, because the person of integrity is going to be remembered because they're never discredited. And so Coach Bowden did that. Was Coach Bowden perfect? Absolutely not. Nobody was. But there were certain priorities that he had and certain things that he had set up that he put into place, and he lived what he preached. The seventh thing that Coach Bowden did, and he did this so well, is he brought a vision that others can believe in. He brought a vision that others can believe in. One of his players said this, they said he painted a great picture of what life is and what life could be before us. He just constantly put that picture in front of them. You can do this. You can become this. He kept putting a vision in front of them that gave them a picture of what their life could be. So basically, Coach Bowden cast vision to hundreds of young men and even young women that he influenced. And that vision helped them succeed, and his life is remembered because of that. People need a vision to become the people they desire to become. Give them that vision, and you are giving them a future. And Coach Bowden did that. And the last thing that I love about Coach Bowden is that he had his priorities straight. All of us need to have a moment in life that we say, okay, what are the things that matter most to our life. And for Coach Bowden, it was the same thing year after year, and he preached this to his players. It was faith first, family second, football third. And I know that his son actually put in there, well, it was education actually, was inserted there as well. But it began with faith and family, education, and football. And that was his priorities. And he lived those priorities. Those priorities became his measuring rod. Your dreams may determine how passionate you are, but it's your priorities that will determine how far those dreams will take you. You've got to have established priorities. If you want to become something, if you want your life, and I hope you do, because I know I do, I want my life to be remembered. I want my life to have impact. I want it to live on even after my own lifetime has ended. Well, I've got to set some priorities. My life has to have priorities, because life will crowd out everything that matters in a second. But if we have priorities and we say, no, that's first, that has to be first. And so, many of you, it might be, I really want to be remembered as a great father. Well, you've got to have priorities to spend time with your children. And when other things come to call and other things start to crowd that out, you've got to say, no, my priority is this. If you're saying, hey, my priority needs to be that God is first, that's like Coach Bowden, and for me, that's the same priority I have in my life, then you choose what you do in your life. You choose how you live your life based off those priorities, because the priorities give you the way to get there. And so some of you may say, hey, I really want to change the world. I want to make a difference in the world. I want to help children in underprivileged countries that, like the gentleman that made shoes, that if you buy a pair of shoes, he gives a pair of shoes to those kids that don't have shoes. He had to choose to do things to create that company and make it a priority if he was ever going to have that type of impact. And so that was one of the biggest things Coach Bowden did, is he set priorities, and those priorities enabled him to live a life worth remembering. So I just wanted to share. I wish I could have interviewed Coach Bowden today. I wish that I could have been sitting here and talking to him, because he would have been so entertaining to listen to as he told his funny stories and all the humor. I mean, you can look up YouTube videos of his stories and his humor. But I'm sitting here today talking about somebody that, while he's no longer with us here physically, he is still with us in his spirit, because he lived a life worth remembering. And stories will be told for years about Coach Bowden. There will be kids that'll grow up that they'll want to be like Coach Bowden, and they never got a chance to meet him. Why? Because his life will continue to live on, because he lived a life worth remembering. And so in the coming days, as this show continues, my desire is to even work harder to find people, to find subjects and things that I can bring up, not only for you, but for me, that will help us be able to make the decisions, to find the inspiration and make the decisions and put together a life that is remembered. Because there was nothing for me as inspiring as being at his memorial service and hearing the stories and the people and the coaches and players all sharing what this man had meant to them. And it's going to go on, and the same can happen to you. So I thankful that you got to join me today. I want to encourage you to share this show. You can actually, if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, Coach Don Newman, you can subscribe. You can also select the notification that will let you know whenever a new episode is coming up. In the coming months, I've got some really special guests that I'm very excited about. You also can go and listen to the podcast on Apple. That's Living a Life Worth Remembering on iTunes. You can subscribe there as well. But I just want to encourage you, live a life worth remembering, because people will continue to talk about your life and my life if we live in that way. Hope you have a great day. Thank you for tuning in. God bless.